Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sporting Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderpook, joined once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton. This week on the podcast, Shockwaves were sent through the Kansas City and American Soccer universe on Monday morning as Sam McDowell broke the news that no one expected we would ever hear. Sporting Kansas City and Peter Vermes had parted ways. It was a bit of an unceremonious end to an almost two-decade run on the technical staff of the club that included 4 trophies, as well as his playing career in Kansas City that included an MLS Cup Supporter Shield double in 2000. He will widely be remembered as a key component to the immense growth of soccer we've seen in Kansas City and the United States in the last 30-plus years, and his name will continue to hang proudly on the wall in Children's Mercy Park. It was an unfortunate end to Peter's time leading the club, but a necessary one for the team to start on a new journey towards meeting the high standards that he created during his time here. Regrettably, the team had fallen from that caliber in recent years, and ownership agreed that it was time to make a change to attempt to start a process to recapture that level of success. Mike Illig met with a large cadre of local and national media at Compass Minerals National Performance Center to discuss the decision and the plans to move forward. He spoke with a significant amount of candor regarding the amount of work ahead of him and the organization as they look to replace a head coach for literally the first time. Peter's fingerprints are on every inch of the facilities in which he worked, and it will take quite a bit of time to unravel the vast responsibilities he had on his shoulders and place them on both current and incoming personnel. In the meantime, Kerry Zavagnin, Peter's longtime assistant and someone who has been at the club for even longer than Peter when you combine his playing and coaching career, will take the reins on the sidelines coaching the team. Illig was very clear that Kerry had been promised this opportunity for some time, and that there was no other choice for who would step in as the interim manager while they both evaluate his performance as well as a potential candidate pool. It will now be Kerry's charge to build and implement a tactical plan to address the significant needs of this team on the field, both offensively and defensively. And we'll try to dig into some ideas of what adjustments we think could be made to help improve the on-field success of the team and build meaningful progress. And if you hadn't forgotten, our rivals from across the state coming to Kansas City this weekend to try to keep their winless streak going. They're a staunchly defensive team that Zavagnin and the staff will have their work cut out for trying to break down and get a result on Saturday. Cody, before we can get into what the future holds, we should probably take a look back at what Peter Vermes has meant to this sport we love, especially in this town and this country. The number of people that have come forward telling stories about how much of an impact Peter has had on their personal and professional lives is pretty stark. And it had me really thinking back to where this club and this league were when he took over as the head coach in 2009. Playing in front of a few thousand people in a minor league baseball stadium and generally not having any meaningful connection to the city in which it played. You fast forward to now where we have a wonderful soccer-specific stadium to go to watch every home game. One that numerous expansion teams since have come to tour as they look to try to replicate the game day experience that Sporting Kansas City became synonymous with. The team now practices in a facility that rivals anything you'd see at the biggest clubs in Europe. And the team and the league have evolved to a level of professionalism that you could not possibly imagine when those games were being played at Community America Ballpark. None of that happens without Peter Vermes. I think, as fans, as podcasters, as people who consume this team, we sometimes disagreed with his choices on the field, what we perceived as his reticence to change. But you cannot ignore how singularly focused he was on raising the level of soccer in this country and this city. And in that, he was a resounding success. So what are your thoughts as you look back on Peter's time here in Kansas City?
So I think that the only analog that I can think of to Peter Vermes in the sport would be someone like Alex Ferguson, right? Like even to this day, Sir Alex Ferguson is synonymous with Manchester United, and he achieved legendary status with that club, and when you think about Manchester United, that's who you think about. And I think that Peter Vermes is kind of the same kind of like all-consuming figure for the club. And I think, you and I both pretty much expect that rightly someday that there will be a statue of Peter Vermes out in front of Children's Mercy Park, and there should be. He was a force to be reckoned with, and he made a huge imprint on the game. Especially in Kansas City, but also in MLS just sort of in general. And I think that Matt Doyle in his article did a really good job of sort of talking about the tactical imprint that Peter Vermes had, and I think that he's been kind of doing the same sort of thing for so long that we tend to forget, what an innovative presence he was as a coach on the field. That's even, obviously he helped, spearhead the facilities upgrade, guaranteed, Kansas City would not be hosting a World Cup without Peter Vermes. And I don't know, that is something that I haven't heard a single person mention, but that is the honest to goodness truth. And I hope that everybody realizes that.
Yeah. I did hear it mentioned somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but it was sort of just maybe it was on Golazo Network, maybe when Nate and Tony were talking about it. But yeah, you're right. There's no way we're watching World Cup games at Arrowhead next summer without Peter Vermes.
Amen.
Not happening. I appreciate that you highlighted Doyle's article, because I think it brought in a concept that it can easily get lost through the constant analysis of this team, especially its performance over the last couple of years. And especially knowing on this podcast, we have been fairly critical of the tactics not adjusting well enough, or something not really connecting. And we'll get to that here in a second, as far as the reasons why this decision was made. But Peter Vermes was a fairly progressive tactician in a league that didn't really have meaningful tactics the way the European game did when he started coaching. Yeah. When he took over and he brought a modern high pressing system into MLS, no one knew what the fuck was happening.
Yep.
He brought like modern tactics to this league, and he maintained them. We like I said in the intro, we disagree sometimes about his choices regarding his tactics, but it's still a fairly modern system that a lot of teams still implement in some way in a similar, absolutely. Perhaps not the exact same choices about how personnel are used, but positional play and the ideas that he uses are still very well used around the world. And that was not something that was happening in MLS when he started coaching. And he brought that to the league.
I mean, I think that that maybe folks don't tend to realize that, previous to that, like in the from the 2000s to 2010 or so, MLS, first of all, had a lot of problems maintaining viability as a league, but also the soccer that was being played was not high quality. You didn't see a lot of possession. It was a lot of 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1, very sort of pragmatic and Peter Vermes kind of he sort of upset that a little bit, and I think that he was able to do that because he pays attention to global trends in the game, and I think that he saw a place where he could gain an advantage with his team, and he brought in the high press and sporting fit and all of those things, right, that were sort of hallmarks of that early team. And then he won the MLS Cup in 2013, and that was like when it's analogous to when the Baltimore Ravens won the Super Bowl with an absolutely elite, once in a generation defense. Like, that's how I feel about that team. Like that it's not that recipe is not repeatable, especially as the league has changed. But he won that cup on just a really just dogged defensive team and a gritty group of players, and he brought a championship to the city of Kansas City well before the Royals Renaissance, well before the Chiefs current amazing run of form. And so, I mean, he just, I think, obviously needs kudos for that, because it was an amazing thing. And then a few years later, like, he went from a super defensively oriented, like, Red Bull style press, sporting fit, kick you in the shins.
It's a very Gijan pressing sort of German style of playing.
Yeah. He went from that to like almost tiki-taka, and people joke that it was Sportalona, because it was a lot of small passes, a lot of emphasis on possession, and it's really amazing. It's hard to imagine now, a coach making that big of shift, and that shift did not take him very long to make, and the team stayed competitive during that shift, and I think that is that's a tribute to him as a coach, but it's also a tribute to the players that he had the foresight to first draft and then develop and play. And so I just don't want that stuff to go by the wayside, right? I think we need to remember what a progressive and innovative coach that he was, and that can sometimes get lost with the way that things have gone in the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I think if you look at the last few years, the main difference is everyone's caught up. Yeah. I think up until 2018, 2019, Vermes was way ahead of the curve for the most part. And also the league has grown quite a bit in investment as well as size. And as a result, it was harder for him to find a way out in front of everyone else. But during that time frame of that consistent success, I think you mentioned, and this has been brought up on several different podcasts and whatnot, talking about like the history of the club.
There are other podcasts?
There are other podcasts out there. Joe Lowry and Jeff Reuter on TSS did actually probably the best distillation I've heard of kind of the history and what the team was and what it's become. But Matt Doyle brought this up as well, the concept of the draft and using the draft to build the team, and that was something that was very successful early on. And you have these players that are going to have their names on the wall. One of them we expect this summer in Matt Beasler, Graham Zusi, Roger Espinoza. These are guys that in the current version of MLS don't go to a draft, right? Like right. That's not how you would acquire them. But he was really effective at finding this key talent that was playing in the United States. Roger's obviously Honduran, but he went to Ohio State.
Hey, don't besmirch Yavapai Community College in Prescott, Arizona, because he went there too.
Yes.
So did I. I failed a semester of calculus there. So.
Totally caught me off guard with that. I'm gonna have to get myself back together here. But I mean, I think that I think Doyle brought some others, like CJ Sapong was a draft pick, Chance Myers was a draft pick. They get Sesanovic on that whole situation in New England. Benny Feilhaber, a similar kind of situation, although Benny obviously played overseas before coming to the Revs. The Iko Para stuff, like he was just really exceptionally good at finding this domestic talent that was maybe a little bit undervalued within the league. There's 30 teams in the league right now. You're not going to find undervalued stuff that nobody knows about, right? Unless you are trying to be Colorado and do this like really crazy analytical model and all that kind of stuff, right? But that requires Colorado spending the last 3 years building that model in order to make it work,
and building an infrastructure to
specific
accommodate
to it.
Right,
100% specific to
including
it, right?
a lot of people, with specific jobs, sort of a delegation that Vermes didn't really have.
No, and so the natural growth of this over this time as he built out this professional organization, and then the rebrand, and then the stadium, and then just I think you're right to a certain aspect, sort of hitting a jackpot with not only the individual players as well as their age, so their ability to be able to play the type of style that he needed physically, along with their personalities really buying into the mindset of it, and just all of that sort of coalescing in the way that it did, created a team that we all remember very fondly. And it did maintain some success, right? 2012 Open Cup, 2013 MLS Cup, 2015, 2017 Open Cups. I still remember that 2017 Open Cup, and it was right after Neil Patterson had died, and just all of the sort of feelings around that, and just you could see it, right? Like, even at that point, you sort of knew that some of this, like, you kind of had the feelings like, how long is this going to last, right? Because we've been pretty successful for a long period of time, and unfortunately, that was the last trophy that the team won.
Yeah,
and it's. But it's still, like, you recognize the amount of effort and sort of singular focus it took to get the team from where it was to that. And then to build the training center and to get the facilities and all the things that they've done. Like, this is a fucking professional organization, man.
Yep.
Like, top to bottom. You quibble about the concessions at Children's Mercy Park or whatever if you want to, but it's still one of the best places to go watch soccer in the world. And the team practices and trains in a way that, like, you better be like, I mean, I don't even think Manchester United's training facility is as good as this. I know Tottenham just built a new one, so theirs is really nice. But a lot of these teams, even in the Premier League, don't have facilities like this.
Yeah.
And that is all because of him. And it's because of his sort of singular focus on really raising the level of what we're doing, and his belief that doing that will improve the quality and also, like, raise the level across the country. And it did. Like, if you look at any of the teams that are coming into this league and the ones that are there now that are at the top, that are bringing significant investment and money, they all have stuff like this.
Yes.
They've all looked at what Sporting has done and mimicked it, and then iterated on it, and even added their own improvements to it. So his impact, I don't think, is really measurable, honestly. And, we've joked a lot about who's going to get the statue outside the state. It's Peter Vermes.
Absolutely.
And you can build it tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned.
Completely deserved.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to hit on before we sort of talk about kind of, why this happened and where we're going from here. I mentioned this in the intro, the number of people that sort of stepped out to just talk about their relationship with him. And some people talked to him 2 or 3 times. Some people talked to him a lot. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I think the man himself versus the sideline persona gets a little bit mixed. Like, people don't really understand the difference. And I can understand completely. If you've never met him, spent any time with him, all you see is a sideline persona. So you just have this expectation of this sort of, very competitive, like, sort of yelling, grumpy, angry man on the sidelines with the sort of army haircut, right? Like, you get this feeling that he's this, that's the guy he is all the time. It is 100% not the guy he is all the time. A very genial, very funny, very interactive person that will give any single human being on earth the time of day, which is not what you see from most coaches. Like, they don't do that. And I can see why externally, like, he looks intimidating. But if you ever got to speak to him, like, interact with him, every single person he would talk to, he would make them feel like they deserved his time. When in reality, not all of them did. But he would still do that. And I think that's the thing that you're going to notice as this club looks to, move on, move forward, so to speak, into this new era without him. There are so many people in that building that he either hired personally, had a hand in hiring, interacted with regularly, sort of helped lift their careers in this some way, shape, or form. There's a lot of people that were struggling on Monday, I promise, because that he has been such a huge part of their personal and professional lives, and that is going to be something that is going to be difficult. And I would not be surprised in the least over the next 6 to 12 months that there's a fair amount of change.
Yeah.
And not because, oh, he's a Vermes loyalist, we need to get him out here, or she's da-da-da. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he controlled every aspect of the vibe inside that building. Like everything. The one thing about Peter is, like, yes, he was available to all those people, but he also was, like, so meticulous and, like, is sort of almost a control freak about everything. Like, he wanted everything to be a certain way. And it was because he saw the potential of it. And so he was almost maniacally focused about that, which means he's touched everything. And it's going to be difficult to unpack that and put it in different people's hands. And that's going to change vibes around it. And some people are going to like it and some people aren't. And there's just going to be natural sort of change that's going to happen as a part of this as well. So I think that this club's probably going to look a lot different in a year than it does right now. I hope it is, in a positive way that it achieves progress, but it is going to be a big change. And I think for a lot of fans, and including the people that talk on this podcast every week, there was a concern whether or not this could be fixed with him at the helm. And there was a thought that perhaps this was the time for that change to happen. Now we got to deal with the change. And it's not as easy as just, okay, Peter Vermes is no longer in the locker room. Everything's fixed, right? No, absolutely not.
This is just the beginning.
In fact, it's way more broken than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a while to put it all back together. To that point, this has been something that we've discussed on and off over the last couple years. I mean, Mike Illig even alluded to it in the onside episode that he was in, that they were very close to letting Peter go in 2023. This, between conversations I've had with a number of people, this was a real possibility in 2023, and it has been brewing for a little bit this year. I think Mike said in his press conference they didn't really consider it at the end of last year. I understand why. I think Peter had earned the right, for all the reasons we've just listed, to get the opportunity, as many opportunities as possible, to right the ship, right? Like, I think that he's deserved that. But I think we can all agree that the last sort of opportunity to potentially shift what has been a problem where players don't seem to be getting in scoring areas effectively was to change the players. And then you change the players and it's still very similar. And honestly, I think Joe Lowry said that they're even worse to watch than they were at the end of last year, which is saying something, right? It's just not. You've changed the players and it's not working. You probably have to change the coach now. And so it has been coming for a little bit. I know it came as a big shock to most people. This has been coming for a little bit. And I think Mike Illig even alluded to it in the press conference that they've been talking regularly, and they talk regularly anyway, but it's a conversation that's been happening for a couple of weeks now about, where this is going and if it's going to improve and if he's able to find a way to make it improve with what they have. And for all we know, the roster may still be doo-doo and it can't be better. I don't know. I guess we're going to find out. But the problem is as has been alluded to on several other national podcasts covering this topic, any other coach has the results of the last 3 years has already been let go long before now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just what had to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's almost like for the last couple of years, to some degree, they've been they've been getting by on kind of vibes, on Peter's vibes, right? And that strong run at the end of the 23 season, and of course, handily beating St. Louis in the playoffs. I think that really sort of galvanized everybody and be like, oh, this is the right guy. This is, this can still work. And I think that we mentioned it at the time, and it's been borne out that was just kind of fool's gold, right? Like that was just kind of a last gasp at the old glory. And
we'll always have those Logan and Denby goals, right?
Yeah, my dogs are freaking out, but we will always have those Logan and Dembe goals, and that honestly, that performance is right up there at like peak Vermes, along with the Toluca game and along with the Chivas game. Just really fantastic performances by his teams, and so the problem is that he couldn't. I mean, he couldn't hold things together. He couldn't keep holding things together any longer. And I think that when ownership invested in attacking players this past window, I think that that sort of upped the ante, right? And so lack of attacking.
He certainly left himself no outs at that point.
Yeah, right. I mean, lack of attacking talent wasn't an excuse anymore, and not only did they come out and not look good, but they, as has been mentioned, that like they are worse, offensively than they were last year, and so. Like you said, and like has been said by other people, like he got as long a leash as you could possibly expect someone to get in professional sports, and it sucks that it ended the way that it did, but it was probably always going to end somewhat acrimoniously.
Yeah, that's the part that sort of sucks, and I think that you and I have discussed this as well. Vermes is not a guy who will ever quit his job.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I mean, unless the dude, won his 7th MLS Cup and just like rose to the heavens off the turf, like there was nothing that was ever gonna be good about this when he finally did leave, unfortunately, and we're just feeling that now. Another thing.
Well, and I just want to be clear, and you kind of hinted at it, but like this is the beginning of a long process, and it's very likely that things could get a lot worse before they get better, and just people need to be prepared for that, because as has been mentioned by a lot of people, that man's hands were in every component, every part of the club, and that's going to take a lot, and it's going to take a lot to replace, and just his day-to-day responsibilities, that's hiring 2 or 3 people to handle that alone, and you have to you have to hope that you're hiring competent people, and even then the shoes are going to be big to fill, and so that's another reason why I kind of likened it to the departure of Alex Ferguson, because I mean you could argue that
Manchester United has been a fucking mess ever since then, man.
I mean, yeah, and it's like what, 10 years ago,
yeah.
And they still are a mess, and so at some point, like it kind of had to happen.
It's probably
but
closer to Pochettino at Tottenham, honestly, because Vermes did not win that many titles, and he wasn't there for quite as long. But right. I mean, I think your point is right as far as him being sort of ubiquitously named with the club. Like, you are never going to separate Sporting Kansas City from Peter Vermes, or vice versa. Those will inextricably be linked forever. And I think that that's the point you're making about it. But yeah, I hope we're not due for another decade of a coaching carousel and just nothing really working. But it's possible. Like, it's a 30-team league, man. Like, there's a lot of opportunity to fuck this up.
Yep.
And
everything is more difficult now than it was 15 years ago, right? Every part of.
But I think that's the point. Is like even Peter Vermes is struggling with it, right? And I think that should tell you everything you should need to know about how competitive it is now, and what kind of work is ahead of the club to put itself in a position to be able to compete in that market in this league. But secondarily, like, put a structure in place that allows them to be a little bit more nimble in the future about making changes when needed in certain areas to try to level the club up quickly.
I think that is key.
I think Mike Illig alluded to this, and we'll talk about his press conference here in a second. He alluded to this in the presser, but like there's no replacing someone like him. Like, Vermes was a unicorn in the fact that he was able to do all the things that he was able to do. And I think that had some impact on why it took so long for them to decide to move on from him, because also the amount of work involved with replacing him is significant. And, as Illig also said in the press conference, he's the only coach they've ever had to hire.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, Vermes basically hired himself, right? Like, he was a technical director.
Right. They
fired Anolfo and he hired himself to be the coach. So, like, they literally never had to replace a coach before.
Yeah.
So it's all of that stuff is it can be at least somewhat daunting. And at least it's a consideration as you're going through this decision-making process. Are we sure we want to put ourselves in this position where we're having to hire 2 to 3 people just to sort of replace what he's doing, as well as offload a bunch of other stuff to other staff that are already there? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot to that, and I think sometimes it's underestimated, literally, how much work he did and how engaged and involved he was with everything. And that doesn't mean it had, like, in fact, I don't think it should be that way. It doesn't have to be that way, and I don't think it should be that way. No. I think they need to have a much more standard organization chart with very clear defined responsibilities and people holding each other accountable and responsible, and all the kind of things that happen in normal organizations in businesses and things like that. So I think this is an opportunity to do that, but it's going to take some time to get that in place and to get the right people in place and to figure out who the right candidates are that sort of fit in the culture of the building. There's a lot to happen there. So one of the things that they also highlighted, and I think this has been a struggle for this club in the last 7-8 years that we've sort of seen this general decline from where they were, is this shift. We mentioned draft picks and sort of domestic players and finding these sort of undervalued players throughout the league and maximizing them. The shift towards international signings and bringing in TAM players and things of that nature. Sporting had a fairly spotted history with it as far as the quality of those players. For every Johnny Russell, there's 3 Jose Mauris, right? And I think that also has been an issue, and something that we've heard Mike Burns talk about openly, about how they need to have more full-time scouts, that they need to bring their scouting department up fairly significantly. There's a lot that this club needs to do organizationally to upgrade its capabilities, and I think that it sounds like some of those wheels were already moving. I think that's why Burns came in. I think that's why they gave him the personnel investment they did, assistant sporting director, scouting department, analytics, all the stuff that he's working on filling out. They did all that because they knew in 2023, when they considered letting Vermes go the first time, we gotta put some more structure around this so that it's not so painful when he does leave, if and when he does leave. And I think they're in a better position now than they would have been then, but they still got a long ways to go.
Yeah, I think that my ideal for them, when I'm thinking about how they should restructure and how they should conduct business moving forward, and I think I maybe texted this to you over the weekend, was a club like Brighton in the Premier League that invests heavily in analytics and focuses on they focus on bringing through players. They know they're going to lose players to bigger teams, and there's just a conveyor belt of players, it seems like, and that applies to the coaches too. And I think that the
their
model
scouting network is really, really good though too. That's
Right.
how they're able to bring those new players
Of
in,
course.
because analytics can't help you with an 18-year-old that much.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that it. One of the things that they've done is they've sort of determined a game model or foundational principles that are independent of the coach, right? You hire a coach that's going to do those, and then if that coach moves on to greener pastures or doesn't work out, well, then you just bring in somebody else and let them try and do it instead of having this sort of like one person in charge of everything. I mean, that is not. First of all, there aren't very many clubs that model doesn't work in the world, and it's getting less and less frequent in MLS as well.
Yeah, well, you're not seeing it that much in the world either. The Mourinhos and the Antonio Contes of the world are dwindling, right?
Yeah.
You don't have that. You have people who can work with, especially at the biggest clubs. They have analytics models, they have ideas, they have philosophies, and you either fit the philosophy or you don't, right? Yeah. And I think that you're starting to see it less and less where an ideologue is in place that is like bringing in their own idea, their own philosophy. It is more like, do you work with the philosophy or not?
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from on the Brighton side of things. I don't know that I don't know how realistic that is for this club. That is basically what Colorado has done.
Right.
And it's taken them like 4 years.
Yeah.
So I do not believe that, first of all, I don't believe that currently, and maybe this changes, but I don't believe currently in the organization there's a willingness to go all in on analytics. Now, granted, that might be due to the personnel, and they're all Peter Vermes people, and that's why, right? Like, maybe that's why the mindset is that way. I know Carey's a little bit more forward-thinking about that stuff than Peter was, but I don't know how, Mike Burns was very clear about the fact that he believes in analytics, but, it shouldn't be, I don't think he's an analytics first type of person by any means. It's more of like an analytics plus, analytics adds to my decision making.
Yeah.
So I think regardless of what the philosophy is, I think the structure is the point that you're making, which is you need to have a philosophy, a game model, and everything, and then you plug in pieces as needed. And when you have natural turnover, which you're going to have at a club like this, you're able to just manage it, right? And plug new pieces into those areas.
The inability to plug in new pieces is ultimately, I think, what sort of doomed Peter Vermes, and they as was pointed out, they never replaced Matt Beasler in any substantial way. They never replaced Roger Espinosa, which, in my opinion, is an even bigger problem.
But realistically, I think that there was a misunderstanding. I don't know if it was a misunderstanding within the room in Sporting Kansas City, but I think there was a misunderstanding maybe in the league at large as to how good those guys were.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think Matt Beasler was defender. Did he win Defender of the Year one year? I don't know if he ever actually won it. I know Ike did when he was here. I don't know if Matt ever won it, but there was Doyle talked about this. I forget where I heard him say this, but Doyle talked about this. There was a reason that Tim Ream never got any fucking caps for the United States.
Right.
Because Matt Beasler was playing left center back.
Yeah, that was on the Sounders at Heart.
Yeah.
Podcast.
The thing with O'Shan. Yeah. So Beasler held down the left center back position for the men's national team for like 4 years.
Yep.
And I think that it's somewhat overlooked a little bit, and everyone looks at like that era of the U.S. men's national team as not being as good or whatever, blah 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 blah. But I mean, I still remember that thing with him and Ronaldo. Like there's fun stuff out there with him playing the World Cup in Brazil and whatnot. Like the guy was really fucking good at soccer. Roger Espinosa won an FA Cup at Wigan. He played it. He played in the Olympics with Honduras. Like he's played in a World Cup. Like these guys were legitimate fucking players, man.
Yep.
They weren't just dudes that happened to be good in college. And I think that's like part of the misunderstanding is like we're like I agree with you. They did not replace Matt Beasler and Roger Espinoza. I don't know in current MLS you can replace that quality without spending DP slots on it. Right. And I think that's the thing that a lot of us don't really recognize in 2013 is that team with that level of quality at the number of positions that they had probably isn't cap compliant in 2025.
Yep.
And so, I mean, good on Peter Vermes for figuring out how to assemble all of that talent at that time and make it work. But I think that that goes back to sort of the jackpot they hit with getting everything the way they did.
Yeah.
When they did.
You couldn't even build a competitive MLS team through the draft right now, much less one that could challenge for silverware. So I think that's your point is well taken.
The Cauldron issued a letter on Sunday. The only thing look, it's fine. It is what it is. I think they had to say something. But as has been the case with them lately, they're a little bit late to the party. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to repeat what Mike Illig said because it's already an internet meme. But the reality is that letter had nothing to do with the decision-making process. As I said, this is a conversation that's been happening for a minute. And they had made that decision before they were even aware of what was in it. I think the conversation with Peter happened Sunday morning, didn't it? So like there was no way that they would even have seen that. So, yeah, maybe it was Monday morning. I don't know. Anyway, the reality is the Cauldron letter, whatever it was way better worded than the last one they did. So I'll give them that. But I don't want to diminish the importance of fans and supporters groups. I really don't. And I think it was certainly within their rights to express their displeasure. And I think that's one of the few things about soccer that's different. I know it was sort of panned and viewed as kind of weird by sports radio in Kansas City. That's because soccer is completely different than any other sport.
Yep. And
supporters groups are just not the same as fans. And I also thought it was weird that the A10 guys because weren't they the ones that like organized the walkout of like the Royals games to try to get the ownership to sell? Like, anyway, regardless.
I stopped paying attention to all of that stuff years ago, and I am
You're much better off. You're much better off. I'm only tangentially aware of it, right? So like what I hear on the Discord and the stuff, I consume enough of it to be aware of it. But yeah, you're right.
I used to listen. I used to be a daily listener, so I totally get it. But it's not
hot take sports is not really my thing. Like I'm just not that interested in
it. And you can tell that because we didn't jump on and podcast, right after we heard the news, and I think that's part of that is because you and I are both people who avoid hot takes as much as we can, and I think I can speak for myself that I like taking in everybody else's thoughts and thinking about things and thinking through, what I want to say and how I feel about things, and hopefully that comes off as not so hot takey.
Right. I don't want to sound like we're better than anyone. That's not what I'm trying to say. But we do both prefer to gather our thoughts and make sure that what we're presenting to you all is really what we believe. And I think that sometimes in the hot takey stuff, it doesn't seem as genuine because it's just whatever thing came out of your mouth at that point in time.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike Illig meets with the press. I will say that, I'm going to just talk about the bits of information that I thought were interesting from this. The first part was the level of candor displayed about like, look, we're still figuring this out. Mm-hmm. And I think Zach said on the Discord that, there was a little bit of concern because it seemed like, well, we don't, he was saying, I don't know too much. that it doesn't like present confidence about where we're going. And I can understand where that mindset comes from. I'm not trying to diminish it, but also I think it's nice to just see him be like, this is what it is, right? Like we just, and I highlighted this on the Discord as well. Mike Illig and Peter Vermes were very close. Like they were like friends. They knew each other well. They interacted a lot. He's trying to manage communication with a lot of media, like more media than I think there's ever been for a Sporting Kansas City press conference, maybe outside Gavin Wilkinson, but that's a whole separate reason. You could tell that he was like dealing with the emotion of it. A couple people asked him, and he was able to sort of elucidate like what it was like just as a human being trying to deal with that. And I think you're dealing with a guy. You got a guy who's like, had to go fire his friend, and then come talk to the press about how he's gonna fix it, right? And like I said, there was a level of transparency that I think the club has been a little bit better at over the last like year or so, about being transparent about what's really going on. And I prefer that than some bullshit about, we're so sure we've got this great search firm and they're going to blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we're going to engage some search firms, because I think Mike even said, he was like, I'm a soccer guy, but I'm not like you're going to have to talk to Carrie about the tactics and the things like that. Like that's not my expertise. And when you take that down to who's making this decision as far as chief soccer officer, new head coach, maybe some other positions in the front office as well, it's Mike. There's nobody else.
Yeah.
Mike Burns? No, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I think Burns will have an opportunity to interview to be the CSO, but they're not just going to hand it to him. And there's a reason I think that I'll get to here in a second, but he's the decision maker at this point. Mike Illig is. He is the highest ranking person that can make these types of decisions. And he was obviously the highest ranking one in the first place, but it's not like there's this whole organization of people that he can delegate this to. Right. There isn't. So, the buck stopped with Peter. So now he's got to come up with a means to analyze, build a strategy for, like, how do I replace all this? And so, they're going to use the search firms and use some folks to help him figure it out, because they just don't have those people in the building. And I think,
honestly, it's probably good that they don't. I mean, it's, what
new ideas.
I think the club needs an influx of new ideas for sure.
And I think that, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Honestly. And so I'm not really that concerned about it. The fact that they've hired two separate search firms, I think both to help with talent identification as well as build a strategy for what should this organization look like? Yeah. Where should we prioritize? What should the philosophy be? How do we make sure that we're getting candidates that fit within it, et cetera, et cetera? There's a lot of work involved with this. So, it's going to take a minute. And I don't think they should be in any rush to fix it. And it doesn't seem like they are. So that's good.
And they definitely should not be in a rush to hire a coach.
No.
The CSO is the most important thing that they need to get right. And whatever, as far as I'm concerned, like whatever it takes, right? The CSO is most important, and then the coach can come after that. And I'm not crazy about Carey running the team for the rest of the summer or the rest of this season, but if that's what happens, that's what happens. And I think that as fans, we need to be we need to have clear eyes about the process, and that's a possibility, and we're gonna roll with the punches, because things are changing, and it might take a while, but I think that better days are ahead of us.
Yeah, they're just not going to be tomorrow.
Right.
And that's okay. And I think that, we've discussed this for a couple years, that any type of transition from Vermes was going to be extremely painful.
Yeah.
And, we're in so much pain right now from a results perspective that, we should be able to handle it for a little bit longer. I think I agree with you that the chief soccer officer thing is the most important. I thought that it was interesting that when they discuss Carey. So first of all, when it comes to Carey being the interim coach, they had to have an interim coach of some kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you explain? I think just practically, I don't know who else it could be. I don't know who else has the license to do it.
Right. You have to be licensed, and also, I mean,
I don't know if Ash Wallace has a license that could do it. Like Z left at the end of the year.
Yeah.
He was the only other one on the staff that I was fairly certain had a license to coach on the sideline for MLS. Mm-hmm. Ash may be working on one. I mean, they've got the whole. I'm talking about Ash Wallace. He may be working on one, and they've got the whole certification center there at Compass Minerals, but.
That stuff doesn't happen overnight, right?
No,
I mean, it takes months to go through each one.
I think you need to have a USSF A. I don't think you need a USSF Pro to coach an MLS. You need a USSF A, and still, that's a process. I think Raj has his B license, but it's a whole thing to get your A license, and it's courses and testing and a whole lot of like other like practical that you have to do, and then come back, and it's a fairly time consuming process. So,
and expensive.
I don't know. And expensive, yeah. I mean, the club's probably paying for that crap,
right.
But still, it's so practically. I think Carey's probably the only one on the staff that reasonably could do it. Otherwise, you're trying to hire a caretaker coach. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, that's bad.
Not. You don't want to do that. So, Carey as the interim coach makes sense. Additionally, it sounds like this has been a conversation that Mike Illig has had with Carey in the past when they've done like contract renewals or just separate conversations. Is he would have the opportunity when Peter actually did leave to do this. Whether or not he, kept the job was on him, but he would have the opportunity to do it.
Well, that might be a big reason why Carey has stuck around so long anyway, and has not, tried to go elsewhere.
There's a whole lot of conversation about that in the Discord as well. It's like he was always mentioned a lot in the 2010s when Sporting was very good, as being on the radar for being a number one somewhere and never really happening, and a lot of questions as to why why he sort of fell off the radar. I've been reliably informed that he is an ambitious person that would like to have been a first team coach.
Sure.
First team head coach, but for whatever reason that didn't happen. But also, to your point, may be accurate about the fact that he was willing to continue to ride it out because he had he knew he was going to get this opportunity at some point. And the last thing that I want to cover from Illig's press conference is it goes back to the top down sort of approach for what the team is. And I only want to bring it up because Chad Smith mentioned in our Discord that he thought it was kind of interesting, and he didn't get much feedback on it, was Mike Illig specifically saying he wanted the team to play possession-based, attractive soccer. And Chad thought it was kind of interesting that the owner would do that. And I'm like, well, no, that is how you define a game model. Like the very first thing is like kind of the philosophy of what you want the team to look like.
And frankly, that's what everybody is going to say.
It's euphemistic for sure, right? Like
nobody's like, yeah, I'm gonna have a team. We're gonna park the bus, hit on the counter, dump it, kick it in the mixer, right? No one's saying that, right?
We want a bunker and counterattack. That's what we're gonna do, right? Like, but I think still the concept of what Mike is saying, if you listen to the quote, is kind of like sort of more in line with what we've been doing than a potential complete tactical switch, right?
Right.
And I think the point that the only point that I'm making there is, yes, the guy at the top of the decision making tree that is defining who's here and who's not should be the one saying, this is what I want to see.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be any more detailed than that.
Mm-hmm.
You build the game model from there. And so any chief soccer officer candidate that comes in, any head coach candidate that comes in, whatever, you're building the game model from that. Chief soccer officer candidate comes in with a game model idea.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what you want to see. Here's how we're going to achieve it.
Well, and the nice thing about setting those parameters, up front is it means that we won't have to put up with like Steve Cherundolo, right? Like we're
That is not who they're looking for. And
right.
that also, honestly, I think that limits candidates like Gio Savarese as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think so that should give you some insight to that. Now, that's not to say that once they get a chief soccer officer in place and that person communicates with Mike more and they're like, well, look, we could do things this way with this personnel grouping, that they don't pivot, right? Like it's natural. Soccer evolves. You need to be able to adjust to the state of things at a certain time. But Mike will not let this team look like St. Louis does right now.
Yeah.
That's not going to be, that's not something he wants to see. And I can appreciate that. And like I said, the main point I was getting across is him making that claim and then saying, Carey, it's your job to come up with the tactics and the setup in order to achieve it, is literally how this works.
Absolutely.
Right. And so it's not weird for him to give that direction. In fact, being clear about the direction is the most important part, in my opinion. So he made the comment about it being Carey's job to lose, and that sort of ruffled some feathers with the language a little bit, I think, because they were like, well, I thought we were doing a full search and we're going to bring in other stuff. I think this is press conference speak a little bit, and also a vote of confidence in Carey. What's he going to say? Hope he figures it out. Otherwise, he's out of here.
Like this is no different. This happens in other sports all the time. It's no different than any of those cases where you have an interim manager step in, and you're like, oh, he's going to have a chance to earn the position. Like, duh. I mean that's just what happens, and it surprises me that people are so taken aback by it. And I mean, I guess it's just that they see They see Carey as an extension of Peter Vermes, and they don't want more of the same thing. But there's no guarantee that that's what's going to happen.
Right. I think you made my point, which is I can understand, given that he's been an assistant for as long as Peter Vermes has been a head coach of this team, that you would assume that he's going to have similar concepts and tactics and things and philosophies to Peter Vermes. First of all, they're two different people. While I have not personally ever been in their war room, I've been told of the shouting matches in the war room. Okay, these guys don't always agree. Okay, they have different perspectives on things. The assumption may be accurate. We may come to find that Carey is doing things in the similar way, and we're not getting the movement out of the team that we want. Or we could find that this changes and the difference in mindset and making some tweaks is actually going to unlock the team in a little bit better way. We don't know that. In the meantime, as I said earlier, practically he's the only one that can coach while we're figuring this out, and it is an on-the-job interview. What better opportunity could he get to show that he deserves to maintain this job?
Yeah.
If he pulls it off, great. Why would people be mad at that?
Amen.
So, could it be more of the same? Sure. Do we know that? No. We've never seen him coach before. Literally never seen him be a head coach anywhere. Well, he's been on the sideline, I think, twice that Peter was sick and was unable to be there, but Mike Kuhn's going to get me with this one, I'm sure. I'm sure he has the number of times that Carey was on the sideline as the head coach. But
absolutely.
I remember once for sure. But I think the assumption, while I understand it, is it's still an assumption, I guess is the point.
I think fans should be grateful, honestly, that Zvagnin is here, because we've already spoken about all of the other sort of infrastructure and build out that needs to happen. And And you can't, if you hire a coach right now, like, first of all, like, what coach is going to come into such a chaotic situation? That's not an attractive job for everybody. If you don't have a CSO, if you don't have, scouting and analytics built out appropriately, you can't put the cart before the horse, man. You're just gonna keep churning through managers, and it's gonna be a mess. It's worth it to take the rest of this season to set things up correctly, to get your CSO, to build out your personnel infrastructure, and, like, honestly, the coach is like maybe like the last thing that we need to worry about at this point.
Especially if you're hiring a CSO whose job is ostensibly to find the right coach.
Right.
Obviously,
Absolutely.
Mike Illig's going to participate in the conversation of whatever coach that person hires, but it makes no sense to make a coaching decision before the CSO decision if you're going through this rebuild in this way, right? When I talk about the rebuild,
that would be a
I'm
silly
talking about
way to
the
do it.
organizational rebuild, right? Yep. If you have all of these positions available and the one at the very top is the one you hire last, that doesn't make any sense, right? So I think that there's some time here for Carey to show via on-the-job performance that he is deserving. But I also feel fairly confident that even if Carey rattles off 7 wins in a row, that they're still going to look.
Yeah.
And they're still going to look at what other stuff is out there. And then when the CSO cuts in, that person's still going to evaluate and say, is this going to give us the best opportunity for success in the future? And they can go from there, right? In the meantime, I think given how much of a upheaval this creates, maybe a little consistency isn't the worst thing on earth, at least from as far as voices that the team is familiar with. He's going to make changes. I feel fairly confident that there's going to be some differences in how they're doing. We might not see him against St. Louis, right? Like in a week, maybe not. But I feel fairly confident there's going to be some different uses of personnel and some different ideas about how to unlock the team a little bit better. And
I have some set piece ideas. Just putting it out there.
You do. They're pretty short on coaches right now. You might need to put in an application.
Honestly, it can't be any worse than where I work currently. So
I gotta believe Raj is going to be on the bench on Saturday.
Yeah, let's hope so.
I mean, it's him, Ash Wallace, and Carey.
Yeah.
I mean, Alec Duffy's the goalkeeping coach. Like they don't have any more coaches. So we'll have to see how all that shakes out and what the different sort of areas of responsibility are. By the way, the team played a game last Saturday. We don't need to spend a ton of time on this. I will say this. The first half hour was fairly entertaining. I was actually mostly impressed with it, except for the chance creation part.
Yeah.
And that's all I can say for it. I liked the midfield setup. I think Manu, Jake, and Bartlett was a very active midfield that did create a lot of upfield turnovers, which is more in line with what we've seen this team at its most successful accomplish. So I was pretty happy with that. And then it just sort of seemed like they ran out of gas after a half hour. It sort of coincided with the goal. I think you mentioned to me that you thought it was them letting their foot off the gas. I just think they just got tired, honestly. Because the intensity was at an extremely high level for a half hour or so. And it was, it wasn't hot, but I mean, it was mid 70s and 70% humidity in Frisco. So it's not like you're able to run at that pace for that long in a situation like that. I don't know what your thoughts were on it, but I mean, I think I liked the Manu, Jake, and Bartlett midfield outside of Manu's ineffectiveness in hitting a single progressive pass into a goal scoring area.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the midfield that we sort of had penciled in as our preferred midfield for ever since, like, basically the first week of the season when we saw how well Jacob Bartlett was playing and how good he looked against, frankly, a much better team than Dallas. And I don't know. I think that Jake was as good as advertised. Honestly, I thought he was really, like you said, really active, and dangerous in both defense and attack. And I hope we never see him at right back again. I'm not joking. I really.
Something I really noticed is how, and he was sort of doing the Manu pressing role, where he was getting very high up and pressing heavily up the pitch. But because this is such a new thing for him being in the midfield as far as games are concerned, and Manu and Bartlett, there's been so much lineup rotation, and I know we talk a lot about how we'd like Vermes to move the lineup around a little bit. Sometimes when there's so many new players and so much lineup rotation, you don't have that sort of knowledge of each other and your positioning and how you're doing things, and you're sort of reacting as opposed to predicting. And I just found Jake's pressure to be good, but there was no line collapsing behind it. So there was no cover shadowing. There was no nothing sort of preventing the next pass when he made that pressure. So while it was active and it looked good, it wasn't very successful. And it was because it wasn't really coordinated with his other teammates. And I don't know if that is just more of a familiarity thing or an instruction thing. It feels more like familiarity, because we've seen Sporting press with the center forward and a midfielder quite a bit. This is not a new concept for them. So I think that there was more familiarity and just understanding it, and the lines coming up at the same time to take space away for them to pass into. So I would like to see more of that, and I would like to see those players play more together, because a primary component of what this team does is try to create turnovers in advantageous areas of the field, and they can't do that if only one guy is pressing. They have to be doing it together.
Well, yeah, all together. I'm not convinced on our buddy Shoppy's pressing chops to this point. So
he's not a really good defensive winger at all.
He's not, and which that. Okay.
I mean, we all have. Not all of us are good at everything. Like, it's. I mean, he gets a really nice assist in this game, mostly because Shallowy scores an insane goal. But Shallowy has two unbelievable flicks off his right foot to the outside post for goals already in two games. But I like Shoppy. I was thinking this in my head because you mentioned last week, when we get new players in, they seem really bright when they get here, and then all of a sudden they sort of fall off. And it was more like I think the comment you made was the creativity gets beat out of them or whatever. I don't really think it's that. I just think this team is so predictable structurally that once you have like 90 minutes of game film on any player, you know where to position your players to limit their ability to do the cool things they do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really think it's more that, because because you know what areas of the field they're going to operate in and where they're going to try to receive the ball. And as soon as you eliminate that space, they lose their effectiveness. And so I think it's more that, right? And everyone knows Shoppy's cutting onto his left foot, so they just wait and then position two guys at the corner of the box, and there's nowhere for him to go. So I again, I don't think Shoppy is bad. I think Carey Zavagnan's got some work to do to figure out how to utilize the strengths of these players to put them in places to use them. Right? Yeah. Like put them in space where if Shoppy's in space with that thing on his left foot, he's going to launch a cannon. We know that. How do you find him that space? Right?
Absolutely.
How do you find Manu Garcia in the center of the pitch with his head up looking at runners downfield? Like,
how do you find Joveljic in the box?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Joveljic is making it. Joveljic is along with Shallowy, along with Shoppy, making vertical runs. Yep. Manu's got the ball at his feet with his head up, choosing one. How do you create that situation, right? Yep. And I think that is what we really need to kind of focus on. So I'm not even going to talk about the defensive shit. It sucked. It sucked. Danny Rosero goes down to the ground way too easily. We know this. This is a problem. It's been a problem. Jansen Miller gets little brother by Leggett. Okay, it happens. I thought Miller was
At
actually
least
okay
at least
otherwise.
Rosario didn't injure himself again, so there is that.
Jesus Christ. But he goes to the ground with both legs, too. It's the weird... It just looks awkward and weird.
does.
And I don't know
does.
what he's doing.
I love Jansen Miller.
Jansen? Did we make him Danish all of a sudden?
It's a force of habit.
Jansen.
I watch way too much European soccer, so
he is quite Caucasian, so he probably could be of Nordic descent of some kind.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jansen Miller was I really liked him a lot outside of the oopsies. And I think he actually got enough of Acosta on when Garcia has the bad turnover. I think he gets enough of Acosta that they should have stopped that play.
Yeah.
And then Rosero just flops to the ground for some reason. And anyway, and I'm not going to take one bad. By the way, he does get little brother by Leggett, but every crashing defender overruns the fucking play.
Yeah.
Like they're past the goal line by the time the pass gets hit.
It's crazy. I've never seen that. I mean, and
They're
then
in the net, dude.
and then they just stand and watch.
Well, yeah, because they're like caught in the net.
Oh my god!
It looked like a damn Police Academy video or something, man. It was like, Jesus. Okay, sorry, we got sidetracked. So Kerry Zavagnan's got some work to do when it comes to coming up with some adjustments, coming up with some tactical ideas to get these players that do have positive traits in a position to use them effectively. Jamin Moore, for those of you that are not familiar, easy for me to say, not familiar, is one of did he found American Soccer Analysis, or he's one of the people?
I think he's one of the founders.
One of the founders. He and Carl Carpenter were the guys that created the Where Goals Come From series, which is fantastic if you're a nerd about analytics. And now you don't have to be a nerd about analytics, really. At least to read the first article on Where Goals Come From. But it's a concept that they've put together about, analyzing the best way to score goals. I mean, breaking it down to the process, or the thought process that the point of soccer is to score goals and to prevent your opponent from scoring goals. All the analytics in the world, all the different kind of things that we look at, are a means by which to come up with a process to score goals and prevent your opponent from scoring goals. As Bruce Arena would say, the only stats I care about are the scoreboard. Right? I mean, that is the concept of the game. Now, obviously, a lot of things happen in between that create the score on the board, but that is what you're trying to accomplish. Jamin put up a thread, and I put it in the Discord, about I think it's XG per shot differential. I think that's what it was, right? So you're looking at expected goals per shot and the expected goals per shot you're giving up. And Sporting Kansas City is by far the worst team in the league at this. Like, they have a negative XG per shot differential of almost like a tenth of a goal. It was really bad. And it's been ongoing for some time, for several years, that this has been a problem, that they're taking really low percentage chances. They're taking really low percentage chance shots. They're giving up really high percentage chance shots. And it is, I think Jamin put it up specifically because you can sort of draw a line between which teams are on the positive side of this differential and which teams are on the negative side of this differential, and what their points per game is, right? Yep. And so it is a problem that Sporting has to sort of reckon with and try to solve.
It's just like you said, it's not a new problem. I mean, we know that this team has had issues for years creating easy chances, and last year and the year, but we were calling them nothing but Bangers FC or whatever.
Bangers Only FC.
Yeah, Bangers Only FC, because it was just all these nice outside shots which are aesthetically pleasing, but not really replicable in any real sense of the word. And so that's that's really the task that's facing any coach, and especially a coach for this group of players is how do you get the ball into positions where you're more likely to score.
100%. And also, how do you build a defensive structure that doesn't allow your opponent to get such high quality chances? And Chad Reynolds had a sort of response to that on the Discord. I'm not going to read all of it, but it basically was saying, well, yeah, this team gets into the umbrella of despair, as we like to call it. I'm not saying Chad said that, we call it that, and gets sort of collapsed at the top of the box and just wails away because they have no other ideas. And those types of shots lead to turnovers that create transition in a lot of circumstances. Yeah. And then they have to defend a significant amount of space. And then as a result, the shot quality is way better for their opponent. So it's sort of natural that those two things are happening. And I don't disagree with him. But what I'm also saying is that there needs to be a better philosophy for how they're getting shots, so that one, the quality of their shot is better, and two, they're not giving up transition events like that.
Right.
And I think those two things can happen, and they can coexist with each other. So I sort of spitballed some different ideas and different things out there. While I bemoaned sort of the mindset regarding prioritizing getting Eric Tommy on the field, I think he does have value if he's in the right position. And so I sort of spitballed a philosophy where Eric Tommy sort of plays as like a shadow striker, sort of like an underneath forward, almost sort of a Thomas Muller sort of style player, where he can receive the ball centrally and drive with it if he wants to. He can make runs off of passes if he wants to. But he's not necessarily in any way tasked with significant responsibilities regarding ball progression.
Right. Or chance creation for that.
Chance creation. That's really it. More chance creation. Progressive passes leading to a shot, right? Like we don't want him in charge of that.
No.
But that would require sort of a responsibility shift, potentially formationally. I suggested sort of a flat 4-4-2 because it's something that they defend out of a lot, right? Like we've seen that before. It's really kind of a 4-2-3-1, but it's a 4-4-2 block shape, but that would also require a Manu Garcia, Jake Davis double pivot, and so there are some concerns about that being effective in a proper way. I do think with Daniel Shalhoub on the left side that there's some help defensively over there that could be useful, but I'd be interested to hear like kind of, first of all, what are your thoughts about ways that they can kind of get out of this sort of possession, this sort of like the slow sort of plodding possession? Some of it is moving the ball more vertically faster, and we did see that for the first half hour against Dallas. I saw Jacob Bartlett hitting 20-yard passes on the ground to like send players forward. So I think some of that is part of it. But additionally, just some ideas or some thoughts that you have about how to get the team into places where they are receiving the ball, where attacking players are receiving the ball closer to goal, in space. And additionally, kind of what your thoughts are on what Manu Garcia's best role is on this team now that we've seen him play for a little bit.
Wow. I don't... I think that so far, Manu's best role has probably been as the left side at 8. However, I think that that's because, and I texted you to this effect. I think that he was making plays from a little bit deeper in the field than he was when he was playing sort of the number 10 role in the 4-2-3-1. When you pay, frankly, like, if he's your DP number 10, he should be able to do both or either. I do think that a lot of, I suspect that a lot of the issues with him and his lack of imprint on games is due to the game model. Frankly, I just think that try and say this the way that I want to. I think that creation, chance creation by the number 10 in the system is always kind of a dicey expectation, which is why in the past it's that sort of chance creation has really fallen toward to the wingers, like more so than a lot of the midfielders. And I think that that maybe with the exception of Daniel Shalhoub, that there are no wingers who have the ability to do that on a regular basis. And what I mean is from the winger position creating, finding ways to create shots and assists. One of the reasons that the team does that, or one of the things that leads to that is the emphasis that Peter Vermes always had on width. And it's everybody. Like when you have the ball,
if you look at
spread.
the average positioning from the Dallas game, man,
Yeah.
it is all wide.
Right, and like that's great because it creates space for you to pass into, and but as we discussed like last week, like teams they know that, and they concede the wide areas to Sporting Kansas City, and if Sporting Kansas City are successful in progressing the ball, they just drop into a low block, and Sporting Kansas City has not shown at all in recent years that they are capable of defeating the low block consistently, and so. So you're kind of left with this, how do you get the most out of Manu Garcia in that setup? And I think that that's part of the problem is that he that setup was maybe putting too much on him to be too much on the ball in those spaces without enough help from his wingers and maybe even the center forward. And so, I think that looking at overloads a little bit differently and not focusing so much on width and not being afraid to really, for instance, overload the left side and let Manu be over there, let Joveljic be over there, and then that, if you run overloads, extreme overloads like that, and aren't so focused on sort of that balanced width, then that's how you create vast acres of space to find players like Shapi Suleimanov, right? Because that's what he needs, and that's why when we see other teams do that, their wingers will pop up and just be dribbling in space and it seems like our wingers very rarely are doing that. And that's because they're being given that space. Because teams know that that's what's going to happen, and so by the time that our wingers get the ball out there, they have two defenders that they have to beat. Whereas if you overload, if you have this like unsymmetrical overloading, then you can put Shapi 1v1 versus a fullback, and he's going to be a lot more successful in that kind of matchup. And so that's I think. I think I maybe answered both of your questions kind of at the same time. Yeah. That also sort of gets to like how does the team break down a low block, which is one of the big conundrums in the sport. Anywhere is if you look at a team like Arsenal, who I think have a lot of the same positional play. Priorities that Sporting Kansas City has had, like they have a similar problem when they get down into the attacking third and they just kind of stall out, and it takes somebody like Martin Odegaard dinking passes over the back line, or it takes Bukayo Saka being one of the world's greatest wingers in order to unlock those defenses, and we don't have those players, right? And so,
or Man City when Kevin De Bruyne is on the field, or
right, exactly.
They need some sort of elite unbalancer, in order to unbalance that block, and that's not something Sporting has.
Right. Well, and it's not something that Sporting has prioritized because because Peter Vermes is always about control and balance, and when you have somebody who is you need somebody who is able to inject a little bit of chaos in the attacking third. And in my mind, that has always sort of run a little counter to the way that Peter Vermes likes to set up his team. And so, it's hopefully that's one of the things that Kari Spagnan can do, is sort of, allow a little more freedom, and maybe build in some chances for more chaos in the box. And I don't know whether, frankly, I don't know whether Joveljic is the guy to help with that at this point in time, because really Joveljic needs two wingers who are going to help get him the ball. And
the one time I saw him try to dribble with it, he drove at the goal line. His third dribble was 12 yards and went out of bounds.
Right.
I don't know that he's going to be that. I
wonder. He's not a big header of the ball either, right?
Right.
He doesn't score, so you're not dumping in crosses for him. So
I'm more thinking about the overload concept that you had, though, because this is one thing that Polito actually did really well, is he would roam side to side in the box quite a bit, and that was something.
But then he wouldn't get back in the box when you broke, right?
But I think Joveljic stays a little too central and doesn't really move that much. And I think that there are opportunities. I'm thinking of a 4-man overload sequence that actually led to a goal. It was Polito, Ndenbe, Shallowy, and Tommy, I think, went through kind of a sequence that led to an Ndenbe outside the box goal. That was stuff that drew enough of the opponent out that they could then play behind it. And the reason I bring it up is because that's something that Peter Musa does quite a bit for Dallas, that you saw a lot in that game, and I saw a lot in just sort of the film I was crunching prior to that game to kind of prep the preview for it, which is he would move across the box quite a bit. He would get very wide with one of the wingers to kind of help create that imbalance and pull the defense out to that side. And I think that, and I don't know if it's either by instruction or by profile, but Joveljic is not doing that as much. He's very central and very deep a lot of the time, and I would prefer him to, helping unbalance the opponent's defense by moving a little bit, to participate in those overloads. And I think that there's so much, I think it feels to me like there's so much sort of programmatic intent on getting the ball up the width and then hitting a centering pass. So that Joveljic is constantly looking for the centering pass. The problem is everyone in the league knows they're trying to do that.
Right.
And so they never crash.
Right.
When the winger gets over there, they leave him 1v1 with the fullback and just defend the pass.
Well, and two, not only is that happening, but we've complained about this a lot, is the inability to make consistent near post and far post runs, and those are ways that you can help unlock that defense. One of the big keys is I said injecting a little chaos, but really that just means being unpredictable, right? And so when you have players who are lined up and sort of locked into the vertical channels that are such a key component of positional play, if they're locked into those vertical channels, then you're just getting vertical movement, right? And we don't see enough off ball movement at all, but we don't see players making diagonal runs. You don't see Daniel Shallowy making a diagonal run from the left half space to the near post on the right side, right? Like that's not a run that Sporting players ever make.
In fairness, Eric Tommy made that run a lot when he was playing right wing. He was getting central a lot. Now, part of it I think is just his natural. He's not a winger, so he's always going to go to the middle of the field. I don't think it was necessarily him creating chaos or doing any of that kind of thing. It's just naturally that's just where the area of the field he wants to operate in.
Dude wants to score goals, man. Yeah. You can't.
He's going to go he's going to go central where the goal is.
So as a coach, you can make that work for you, right? That's part
Right.
of good coaching is to take the proclivities that players show and use them to your team's advantage. And I think that is, that is one of the things that I think that Peter Vermes kind of struggled to do is really look at the individual not only skills and talents, but just what his players naturally gravitated towards doing, and then finding a way to fit that into to an attack that made sense.
Which is weird because that 2013 team, he did that a lot. He's got like, CJ Sapong playing wing and Kai Kamara playing wing and doing like weird stuff where it was they would almost have three center forwards out there at a time, right? Like there was stuff he was doing that was actually like creating problems for the opponent to deal with. Whereas now, you're right. I think there's more of I would prefer to coach you up into this role as opposed to here's what you do. He's going to do it he's going to do this role differently. And here's how I'm going to balance around him in order to make that a problem for the opponent. And maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But externally, it certainly looked that way. I think that a couple things that I would have in mind here, right? One of them is, like I said, they've just got to move the ball vertically faster. They're like, I think Jeff Ruder said on TSS that they're like the second worst in the league as far as vertical velocity of the ball. That's probably next to New England. So like that is we don't need that stat to know that it's true, right? You watch this team enough, you see how slowly they progress the ball. They just need to move the ball forward faster. I think I texted you during the Dallas game. It was like in the first 15 minutes. I was like, this is the fastest I've seen them move the ball forward all season. Yeah, it's the best ball progression all year.
One of the stated goals in this past off season was, the team was going to try and be more direct. They were going to try and play more direct, and they haven't really done that. And if you watch MLS, like so many teams are doing that so much more successfully than Kansas City, and that's what it takes is getting out and really progressing the ball quickly vertically before the defense has a chance to set up.
Especially because defenses in MLS are generally not that good, or at least in comparison to the attack. There's a lot more money spent on attackers than defenders in MLS just because of the salary cap. And so as a result, you should be focused on trying to maximize those opportunities. I think that the nature of what Sporting is doing is sort of like this sort of control mechanism when they should be trying to just release control and make things a little bit more difficult for the opponent to predict. I would also like to see some different players, honestly. There are other players on the roster. We haven't seen Steven Afrifa play a single fucking minute this year.
But we were bringing on Zoran Basong at the 88th
as a time
minute
wasting
or
sub when you're down a man. Anyway, well, we're not gonna shit on Vermes, okay? Like
dude, I was just screaming at oh my god.
But I think that Austin brought this up in the Discord about getting Afrifa out there. And I'm not necessarily saying you bench Shoppy for Afrifa, but I'd like to see Afrifa for 25, 30 minutes at the end of a game, especially if Shoppy's still struggling for effectiveness. Yeah. Why wouldn't we try that? Why wouldn't we try to bring people on that the opponent's not prepared to see?
Well, we've talked about this ad nauseum, right? It's viewing substitutions as solutions, right? Mm-hmm. And not just a substitute, not just because somebody is having fitness issues and needs to come off. You need, you're not getting the ball in the box. You need a solution to that problem. If you don't have that player on the field as a starter, then you need to substitute somebody else in and see if they can do that job.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's how normal soccer teams are run.
Yep.
If you're not cutting it, you go to the bench and someone else comes on to
try. It doesn't matter if you've got the captain's armband. It doesn't matter if you're a designated player. It's just like if you either do the job or, we'll try somebody else. And if they don't succeed, well, you're not losing anything because you weren't succeeding either.
Right. And I think that's the thing. It's like the over reliance on trying to wait for the plan to work out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this. I've got this in the show notes. What's plan B? What's plan C? What's plan D? Like having some different ideas about what you're going to do to try to fix the problem, as opposed to this will eventually work. Right. Yeah. Having such a firm belief in your philosophy that you just believe it's going to work. And I think that's the opportunity I think that Carey has, is coming up with some different ideas about how to move guys around when certain things aren't working. I know Ash Wallace is a guy who likes to watch the first half film, or watch the first half at least at a high level, and then come back with some ideas of like what the opponent is doing and trying to adjust for that. I'm looking for the opportunity to see some of those changes come into play. It really is like, I think that they're the whole world's in front of us as far as that's concerned, as far as how you view change. And I understand an over-reliance on change can be a problem too. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't want to be too chaotic. You want players to feel at least a little bit stable, so they're not making knee-jerk reaction decisions that are also bad.
Yep.
But I think there's a balance to it. All right, let's move on to Potpourri. What did you think? I mean, Kansas City Current were playing at the same time as Sporting Kansas City, and there's a stark difference in performance between the two teams. Kansas City gets up 3-0 before halftime and then just sort of rides it out. I will say something I saw in the first half of that game. I went and watched it with Nolan, and there were two things I saw that were sort of well, at least in the first half of the Current game and the first half of the Sporting game, that were nice. And it was 19-year-old defensive midfielders getting active in pressure. And so I saw Claire Hutton do it. Like, she was up past the half line, back pressing somebody and getting a turnover and then releasing a pass. And I'm like, I didn't know we were allowed to do that. Our number 6 is allowed to do that. And then I saw Jacob Bartlett do it in the first half against Dallas. I'm like, oh, we are allowed to do that. It's like the meme from Star Wars. Like, is that legal? It was nice to see. It's just nice to see some active midfielders doing shit. But yeah,
to be young and athletic.
Mm-hmm, yeah, exactly. But also smart decisions and timing tackles right, and winning them, and then turning the ball over, and it's just nice to see. It's not just running into a tackle. It's timing the tackle. It's getting the ball off. It's like finding the next pass, like all that stuff. We know Claire Hutton is adept at this, but she was on one. She hadn't been the greatest in the first couple games, I don't think. She was way better against Utah. So that was very good. But honestly, it's the Michelle Cooper sans. Honestly, like, she gets better like every week. I feel like she's gonna be a problem, man. Because
I would never have pegged her for like a winger, and she has adapted to that role just really well.
All props to Vlatko on that one. Yeah. Honestly, like, he's done a really good job with that and sort of stuck with it and stuck with her doing it, and it has worked out very well. She's become kind of an unstoppable force over there. Mm-hmm. And Bia getting back from season-ending injury list and getting out there for the last half hour, and I mean, this team's going to be, and Dabinia is looking like prime Dabinia. I think they said she had something like 12 of 15 like shot creating action passes, or something. It was something wild like that. Like, she's cooking.
She's a Brazilian number 10. Let's go.
Yeah, well, she's cooking right now. Like, she was not cooking like this last year. She
wasn't
cooking right now, which is fun to see. All right, one thing to look for.
You didn't. You mentioned everybody. You didn't even mention Chawinga, dude.
Well, that's because she's like Thanos. Like, everybody knows what's happening. She scored in like 8 straight games now.
She's
ridiculous.
It's
like going back to last year. So yeah, I mean, she beat her own record, which was 7 straight regular season games. Yeah. Like, she's just, yeah. I mean, everyone talks about Temwa and they should. Like they should.
She's 100%. I was just giving you a hard time. But,
yeah,
she's amazing.
I'm saying that if all these other players are leveling up around Temra,
yeah,
watch out.
Scary.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, although Orlando's on one to start too, so like, I mean, I think we're only 3 games in, but we're rapidly heading towards an Orlando KC like brawl for the title, which I think will be a good like battle. Like it'll be
and maybe actually a brawl too.
potentially, especially after Marta was talking shit on the field the last time she was here. So that definitely will be a thing. All right, one thing to look for: Pink Dog Food FC comes to town. It is not red. It is pink. It's even. I think Chad said it in the Discord, so I can actually like attribute him to this information, which is that the color and the style code is Power Pink. That is the name of their color. So whenever they tell you it's City Red, it's not. It's Power Pink. That is the name of the color. If you think Arsenal's bad to watch, holy shit. Like this St. Louis team is boring. They have only given up 2 goals in 6 games. Good for them. They've only scored 4. They've scored less goals than Sporting Kansas City has this year.
Yikes.
And their XGA is actually like 6. So they've gotten some really nice performances from Ruben Berkey, but prior to him getting injured, and he's still going to be out for this game. So they'll have Lunt in there at goal. So the 2 goals they've given up have been since Berkey has been away. His post-shot XG versus goals allowed is worse than Pulsecamp's. That should tell you anything. So if they can get by this block, I think their goalkeeper is gettable. I don't know if they can get by this block. Like, that's the problem. It's like we just got done talking about how much trouble Sporting has, as well as teams in general have, with beating a defensive block, and St. Louis will 100% be in one. They don't need to play this way. They actually have some fun attacking players. They don't need to play like this, but Olaf, the snowman, feels that's what they need to do, so that's what they're doing. I don't know what your thoughts are on this game. I'm just hopeful that we see some semblance of growth.
I have not had the misfortune of watching St. Louis play at all this year, so
I've only seen some highlights, and there aren't many for St. Louis.
Right.
You look at them.
So I don't really know what to expect, and I'm looking forward to going out to the game, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some some good vibes in the stadium, because the vibes at the stadium so far this season have not been great. And so I just, we ripped the Band-Aid off, and now we can just kind of breathe easy, just go enjoy the game, hope that the team is competitive, and look for building blocks, look for signs of life, and really the number one thing that Carey needs to do, this isn't like some profound statement, is get the DPs rocking, man. I mean, get Manu and Joveljic scoring and being dangerous and being a problem for other teams to have to deal with. And if you do that, okay, right? I mean, if you're gonna lose 4-3, man, not 2-0. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's go out and let's attack, because that's where the money was invested in the off season. We know that the defense is going to get a complete makeover next season. So let's score goals.
Look, I understand the Galaxy had an elite chance creator and 2 very good wingers around Joveljic that enabled his abilities to be as successful as he was. But this guy scored 15 goals in the league last year. He was like 21-8 in all comps last year. You got to get more out of him than they're getting out of him.
He needs penalty area touches. That's what he needs.
That's it. We saw him get one, and he
Yeah.
scored immediately. So
Yep.
like just get him touches. He had 0 touches in the 18 against
Yeah.
Dallas. 0.
Yep.
That's not effective use of a DP striker.
No, and Agata came on and had like 3 or 4. So
Right.
come on.
Well, I mean, and that should tell you everything you need to know about like their different styles and how Agata just does what he does. And I understand where people were like, why did they sign Joveljic when they had Agata? And I think that we've discussed this enough that we didn't need to get into it. But find a way to get Joveljic touches in the box. This should be a prime directive.
Yep. That's it. That's what it's all about.
Hopefully Manu is the one delivering the ball to him to get the touches in the box.
Yes. That would be great.
Such beautifully technical and deep analysis by your guys here on the Home and Away podcast.
That's really all I care about. We talk about like new manager bump and everything, and maybe wondering
That's
how
been mostly debunked.
Right, exactly.
Statistically.
But one thing that a new manager can do, and even if it's a new old manager like Zvagnin, is they can just simplify things. Right, just come in, simplify it, make the game fun for the players again, and that can go a long way towards shifting the vibe of the team and getting the team back on track, at least to being competitive.
From your lips to God's ears.
Let's go.
And on that note, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all next week.
Go Sporting.